The Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, would you please call the roll?
Senators Aguilar, Baumgardner, Cook, Coram, Court, Crowder, Donovan, Finberg,
Excused.
Fields, Garcia, Gardner, Guzman, Hill, Holbert, John, Jones, Kagan, Kafalis, Kerr, Lambert, Lumberg, Marble, Martinez-Humenic, Merrifield, Moreno, Neville, Priola.
Excused.
Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg, Tate, Todd, Williams, Zenzinger, Finberg. Mr. President.
Here. With 34 present, 0 absent, 1 excused, we have a quorum. Senator Quorum. Will you please come and lead us in the pledge?
Thank you, Mr. President. You just thought you had a quorum. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the journal. Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the journal of Friday, March the 23rd be dispensed with and that the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the motion is adopted. Now, Senate Services.
Correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bill 47, 108, correctly re-revised, House Bill 1056, 1078, 1099, 1112, 1172, and 1191.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege by the good senator from District 33 in Denver.
The motion is for the Senate to proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege by Senator Williams. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we will proceed out of order. Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Colleagues, I would like to introduce you today to the African Leadership Group, the African Leadership Group Day at the Capitol. The African Leadership Group was founded in 2006, and it's based in the Denver metro area. It's had a statewide agenda for improving the quality of life for African immigrants in Colorado by facilitating integration and civic engagement. Since its inception, ALG has delivered programs and services and community events focused on key issues such as education, career and job opportunities, business development, immigration, and civic participation, regularly reaching thousands of individuals in the local community. ALG advocates for the entire African immigrant community across the nation, origin, tribes, and language to ensure continuous improvements to immigrants' quality of life. They focus on three primary impact areas: social impact, educational impact, and economic impact. So members, please join me in welcoming the African Leadership Group to the Colorado State Capitol Senate chambers.
Senator Fields. Would you like to tag on to this?
Yes.
Okay. Allowed. Go ahead.
Oh, you? No. I think you were doing this one for me.
Senator Fields.
Sorry. I'd like to request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning to my friend from the African Leadership Group. I am so proud to see you in my workplace. I see you so often around town in Aurora. As you know, Aurora, Colorado is a sister city. And it is a city that welcomes so many immigrants from around the world. And I think the reason we do is because they feel welcome and they feel supported and they feel comfortable. So I just wanted to say welcome for your work that you do in our community by helping people transition into our city. Now, I am the daughter of the dust. And so my ancestors traveled over the pond. And I believe that America is a nation that was built on immigrants. And when I see you around the community, I know how hard you work. You are hardworking people. I see you at the bus stands. You're there early. You're there late. I see you at DIA. I see you in hospitals. I see you manning your own businesses. You are doing good work. So on behalf of the state of Colorado, if no one has ever told you welcome, I'm telling you welcome today. Welcome. It's so good to have you here.
Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is it possible for us to take a timeout for an opportunity for our colleagues to greet our guests, if you so deem appropriate?
That would be very appropriate and a good suggestion. Thank you, Senator Williams. Let's be in a momentary recess while we greet our guests. Senate will come back to order. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate continue to proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege by the good senator from unincorporated Jefferson County, District 16.
The motion is for the Senate to proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege by Senator Neville. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it, and we'll proceed out of order. Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we have a group of people that I think are extremely important to us in the state of Colorado, to the economy of the state of Colorado. We have the owner-operators of McDonald's in the state of Colorado. As you know, McDonald's is the largest operator of restaurants in the world. But I think what many of us know when we go to McDonald's is that McDonald's is also the place where opportunity lies. We see people that come into their first job, and my first job was in the restaurant business, working a lot of hours, not a ton of pay to begin with, but having that opportunity to learn that work ethic. And that work ethic was so important to understand what it means to be of service to customers and to clients, what it means to work sometimes in difficult situations. And we all know, if you've been in the, I don't know how many of you have been in the restaurant business before. Show me a raise of hands here, okay? All right, so I know a lot of folks back here. You know that sometimes the toughest thing is to deal with a hungry person. Hungry people are not always in a situation, they just want to be taken care of. But the most important thing we have in the state of Colorado is a vibrant economy that offers an opportunity for people to move up, not just to learn a skill or a trade and to get a paycheck, but to also learn how a business works. What makes the bottom line of a business, what it takes to actually run a successful business. And then, if you have a chance to talk with these folks later on, many of them, raise your hands if you were a line employee when you first started out. There were several of them. Yes, this is important. This is really the true American dream, that you can start as an employee, and then you have an opportunity to learn the business, and then you have an opportunity to own the business. That is the true American dream. And so, colleagues, it's my pleasure to ask the folks, the owner-operators who provide those opportunities in Colorado and across the nation to stand up, and it's our pleasure to have you as guests on the State Senate floor today.
Senator Martinez-Humenick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
I just wanted to also thank the operators for McDonald's. I had probably 1 out of 3 friends in high school that got their start at McDonald's, and I had several students when I was teaching at the college level that had also become managers, which is a really good position, and some of them could make upwards of $65,000 a year as a manager. So really appreciate our business community and the owner-operators that are here.
And Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. President. And members, I know you all think I'm going to come up here and condemn the cardiovascular health issues of McDonald's, but in fact, I'm going to congratulate them because they've been doing a lot of work at making Happy Meals healthier. They've made milk the default drink, they've made fruit the default side dish, and they're working on decreasing their caloric content. And I want to thank them because, as we know, for many families, their menu is the most affordable. And I appreciate them taking this opportunity to try and help improve the health of our country. Thank you.
Senator Kagan. And this is the last one.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say that I ski regularly in Keystone, and my big treat on the way back is always that I've earned a meal at the McDonald's at Idaho Springs. And I just want to say that the McDonald's at Idaho Springs is always clean, always prompt, always courteous, beautifully prepared food, one of the best McDonald's in the world. And I want to put that on public record. Go to the McDonald's in Idaho Springs. And all the others, but that one in particular.
Back to work now. General order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of general orders, second reading of bills, consent.
Motion is for the Senate to resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Hill will take the chair.
Good to see you, man. How you doing, sir? Good, man. The committee will come to order. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move all of the bills listed on the general order second reading of bills consent calendar, where you may want to ask Mr. Carpenter to read the titles to all of those bills before I complete the motion.
I think that's a great idea. Mr. Carpenter, if you're so inclined, will you please read the titles to all the bills on general order second reading bills consent calendar?
Senate Bill 178 by Senator Smallwood and Representative Kraft concerning the definition of similar coverage for workers' compensation for certain operators of commercial vehicles. House Bill 1227 by Representative Harrod Wist and Senator Cook concerning the authority of the Real Estate Commission to issue licenses with an initial period of less than 3 years. House Bill 1047 by Representative Valentine and Senator Gardner concerning the technical modifications to the Fair Campaign Practices Act to facilitate its administration. House Bill 1145 by Representative Hooten and Senator Moreno concerning the repeal of laws regulating ballot issue petition circulators that have been permanently enjoined from enforcement.
Now, Majority Leader Holbert, if you were so inclined, a motion is in order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move all of the bills listed on the general order second reading of bills consent calendar, including Senate Bill 178 and the committee report from Business, Labor, and Technology, House Bill 1227 and the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee report, House Bill 1047 and the committee report from State Veterans and Military Affairs, and House Bill 1145. There is no committee report for that bill.
Colleagues, the motion is the committee reports on the first 3 bills on consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee reports are adopted. The motion now is the adoption of the 4 bills on second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The 4 bills are adopted. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
All those in favor of rising and reporting, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We will rise and report.
Senate will come back to order. Senator Hill.
Mr. President, your committee has met and had 4 bills under consideration. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave reports that under consideration the following tax bills being second reading thereof makes following recommendations on Senate Bill 178 is amended past second read order and gross place on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1227 is amended. House Bill 1047 is amended. House Bill 1145 passed second reading order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Hill.
Mr. President, for the sake of all that is good, true, and beautiful, I move the report.
Motion before the body is for the adoption of the report to the committee of the whole. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 178 is amended, passed on second reading, order engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1227 is amended. House Bill 1047 is amended. House Bill 1145 passed on second reading, order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Mr. Carpenter, would you please add Senator Priola to the roll? General order, second reading of bills. Senator Hill.
Mr. President, I move the Senate resolve itself into the committee of the whole for the purpose of general order's second reading of bills.
Motion for the body is for the Senate to resolve itself into the committee of the whole for consideration of the general order second reading of bills calendar. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will resolve itself in the committee of the whole for consideration of the general order second reading of bills calendar. Senator Hill will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the request of the esteemed president of this chamber, I move to lay over Senate Bill 43 till Thursday, March 29th. No, March 29th. Nice try.
Colleagues, the motion is to lay over Senate Bill 43 until Thursday, March 29th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. And we will lay over Senate Bill 43 until Thursday, March 29th. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 200?
Senate Bill 200 by Senators Tate and Priola and Representatives Becker, Kay, and Pabon concerning modifications to the Public Employees Retirement Association hybrid defined benefit plan necessary to eliminate with a high probability the unfunded liability of the plan within the next 30 years.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 200 and ask for an aye vote.
There's an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment 24?
Amendment L024 to Senate Bill 200 by Senator
Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L024 to Senate Bill 200.
All right, to the amendment, please, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amendment L024. No, I think he just removes it, Matt.
No, you don't have to move it. You're on Amendment 13.
So, sorry, 13, 14, and then 24?
I was told that we had to remove it. So
Colleagues, just a clarification here. I messed up the order of amendments. That is on me. We are going to start with Amendment 13 by Senator Kagan, then go to Amendment 14 by Senator Kagan, and then we have Amendment 24 by Senator Tate. Senator Tate, I apologize for the mix-up on that. Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I withdraw L024 until a subsequent moment, and I urge a no vote on Amendment L013. Thank you.
Colleagues, thank you for your patience as I work to get caught up on all the amendments here. Senator Kagan to Amendment 13. Actually, just a minute, Senator Kagan. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment 13?
Amendment L013.
Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I remove Amendment L13.
To the amendment, please, Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Amendment 13, just to refresh your recollection, colleagues, is the strike below amendment to Senate Bill 200, which we had begun to discuss when the Committee of the Whole adjourned on Friday of last week. Just to refresh your recollection and not to dwell on it at length, Amendment 13 proposes adjustments to the PERA scheme that do indeed meet the 100% funded goal within 30 years, provides for an automatic adjustment mechanism. If we get off track, if we get above the track, it returns to retirees and employees and employers some of the increased contributions that they would have made, subject to Amendment 13. If we get below track, it has a click once a year, predictable, well in advance, to adjust upward the employer contributions, the employee contributions, and adjust downwards by not more than 1/4% the COLA returns. If we need that to stay on track for 30%, 100% 30-year complete amortization of the liabilities. Unlike Senate Bill 200, it does not call for a 3% increase in employer contributions, but it calls for a 1.5% increase in employer contributions phased in over a 2-year period. It does not call, like Senate Bill 200 calls, for no employer contribution increase, but it calls for the same 1.5% employer contribution phased in over 2 years. Unlike Senate Bill 200, as unamended, Amendment 13 would remove the poison chalice of a direct contribution option. It would do away with the plan to lure people away from the defined benefit to defined contribution, to seduce them into going into a plan that will, all the studies agree, give them less for their money, but yet will cost taxpayers far, far more, as the unamended bill provides for employers to make up the contribution loss to the unfunded liability for those who go for the bait and pick the lure, or as I call it, the poison chalice. If they drink from that, that costs the liability redemption money, and taxpayers will be the ones who have to pay for the unfunded liability amortization if the direct defined contribution option is made. It also removes the unnecessary increases in the retirement age for employees, both current and future, that Senate Bill 200 imposes. And the reason it does all these things and causes no unnecessary harm to employers, employees, and retirees is because Senate Bill 200, as amended by Amendment 13, will take us on the path to 100% funded liabilities within 30 years, particularly when one bears in mind the automatic adjustment mechanism to make sure we stay on track. It does what we need to do, and it does it in a way that does not inflict unnecessary pain on any of the contributors to PERA, or indeed on any of the beneficiaries of PERA. And that is why I'm urging a yes vote on Amendment L013.
Colleagues, the coat rule is relaxed as we carry on this discussion. Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I urge a yes vote on this amendment. Over the weekend, I got an email. Well, I got a lot of emails on this, but one person I know fairly well, who was a school teacher for 30 years plus, talking about what this compromise, this further reduction in benefits, because we already did this in Senate Bill 1 in 2010, would mean to her. Remember, the cost of living used to be 3.5%, up to 3.5%. And it was dropped to 2%. And then this bill had it 1.25%, and I believe the amendment's about 1.5%. And what that means with inflation, I just heard today that Colorado had 4% increase in wages, and that's inflation potentially coming at us. And if you remember the late 70s with hyperinflation and the double digits, she was talking about, I guess I will live with this compromise. What it will mean to me is cutting back on basics. You know, her drugs, her food, her place she lives, all those things, it will mean cutting back. And she became a teacher in part, realizing that while she didn't get paid very well doing some of the most important work that people do in our society, she knew she would have a decent retirement. And what we're telling her is, hey, we didn't really mean that. It's not as good as you thought. Teaching those young people, helping form minds, helping kids get ahead, achieve the American dream, that's not quite as important as us cutting back on the benefits here. Now, we do have an issue we need to address, but the bill itself is, I find, draconian and actually, in my opinion, cruel to people, undermining the whole investment through defined contributions and undermining how many people come into the system, the cuts to cost of living, the fact that you make the employee pay everything and not the employer. That is just not okay. This amendment, this person who wrote me said, okay, I guess I have to live with it. I guess that's where I am. I guess that's my best option. And my fear is that's not the best option. My fear is it is the best option, excuse me. Because this bill goes against what the whole point of a lot of what these people did at the time, as far as working hard, helping young people get ahead, and then having a decent retirement. Because they're not eligible for Social Security or much of Social Security. And we made a bargain with these folks. And this amendment actually is quite a cut to them already, but it's far better than what I find is the cruel bill that we have in front of us. So I ask for a yes vote on Amendment 13. These people worked hard for this. We promised it to them. We didn't fund para enough through time. And now we are here saying we're going to balance on the back of you primarily. And that's not all right. So I ask for a yes vote on this.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to take this time to thank the good senator from Arapahoe County, I was going to say Littleton, Arapahoe County, for drafting this really smart amendment. Members, this is a very good amendment, L013, because what it does, it shares the burden as relates to shoring up para. As you know, 1 in 10 in Colorado receives para benefits, and the state promised them something, and we need to deliver on that promise. And what this bill does, it ensures that there's going to be an increase on the backs of so many employees who work so hard. Our para employees are the ones that are your teachers, your state employees. They have not received an increase in a very long time. This will give them a 1.5 increase, and they deserve that. It is the right thing to do. It is the responsible thing to do. So I urge you to vote yes on Amendment 013.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I also, of course, urge a yes vote on this amendment. This is a clean, efficient amendment that avoids unnecessary politicization, conflict, debate. We know that there is a problem. We know that there's an unfunded liability. But this amendment addresses the unfunded liability efficiently. It's like the way your money manager would have advised addressing this concern. The experts would have said, this will take care of the unfunded liability. With this amendment, we simply address the concern. We don't bring in any unnecessary politicization or argument or debate. We just get done what needs to be done. It's reasonable, it's logical, it's effective, it does the job. So I would urge you to support this amendment. Thanks.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to take much time on this, even though we have spent a great deal of time, and it deserves a great deal of time, but I do think it's appropriate to react to the amendment. Mr. Chair, I hope that as we engage in this debate that no one engages in any fear-mongering either. Because as I look at the emails that are coming my way, I find that most of the people who are responding to me concerning this bill, Senate Bill 200, are not understanding the real dynamics of it, and they either see it as they see it in draconian terms. Well, the cruelness of this all is we are headed down the wrong road, where if we don't put substantive, substantial changes in place, the pension program will fail at some point. Not immediately. I don't want to sound any alarms that are unnecessary, but the real problem is coming down the road. And if we don't address it with real substance that makes substantial changes, there will be a cruel ending for a lot of people who are relying on the Retirement Association to be their means of support for their final years. I don't want to see that. I don't know of anybody who's supporting the original Senate Bill 200 that want to see that. Indeed, my whole goal is to shore this up in a way that can be sustained. There has been some very poor planning over a long period of time, and even today, the assumptions by the PARA board are way over the top. I've talked to too many financial experts, not only here in Colorado, but across the country, who thoroughly agree that the projections that somehow $30 billion is the shortfall is far too optimistic. I ask for a no vote on this amendment, this new bill. It's a strike below, so it's a new bill. It doesn't go far enough in fixing the problem. We need to address this squarely, and I don't believe Senate Bill 200 goes far enough to fix the problem, but it does make some steps forward correctly. Now, this is my last year down here, Mr. Chair, and you and many in this room will be here next year and the year following and for many years, I trust for some. You've got a big job to do, a heavy lift, and we haven't finished it with Senate Bill 200. We won't in any of the forms I've seen, but we will finish less if we accept this amendment as being the new bill. Thank you.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I would encourage an aye vote on Amendment 13 for a couple of different reasons. We've almost started talking about this as a manufactured crisis, almost as if we have to do something now because it's in peril. And it's not in peril. We definitely have some concerns, and we definitely want to do what we can to be able to shore up the fund and address the unfunded liability. But this is not the moment to be trying to remake PARA by introducing a whole bunch of different elements that don't actually address the unfunded liability. This amendment does the job by, in a modest way, but in a way that gets the job done by addressing that unfunded liability without all of the other distractions, all of those other opportunities to try and grab something and remake it because this is the opportunity. No. What we need to do is our jobs, address the unfunded liability, and we needed to do it in the most responsible way. We don't need to adopt a plan that is draconian or that tries to remake the entire PARA system. We just need to do the minimum amount that addresses the unfunded liability so that we can shore up and secure the fund. And that's what this amendment does, is it gets rid of the fluff, it zeroes in on the real problems, the real issues, and it shares the burden among all of the groups, the employer, the employee, and the retiree, in a way that doesn't actually create more problems for our retirees, or create more problems for our employees, or quite frankly, create more problems for the employer. So I would encourage an I vote to do something that is responsible, takes care of the problem, and actually fulfills the title of the bill, which is address the unfunded liability without the distractions.
Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And on the question of how much of a crisis are we facing and how urgent is the matter? Is it a manufactured crisis? Is it not in needing of adjustment at all? Let me tell you my view on it in the hopes that I persuade you to my view on it, colleagues. The way it has been described is as follows. Look, the most likely outcome, if one makes the assumptions that are made and the age of folks goes up as projected, if the return on the investment portfolio is as anticipated, if those assumptions play out, and those are our best estimate of what will happen, we will be never insolvent. Never insolvent. But that's the most likely. The problem at the moment, if to the extent that there is a problem, is that if we should have what might be termed as a 100-year flood, an unlikely event that is really a serious event, say a hit of the size of 2008 on the PERA fund, which makes the PERA fund drop in value. And may I just point out to you, members, the PERA fund since 1932 has dropped in value in only 4 of those years. Now, the stock market has dropped in value in many of those years, but the PERA fund has dropped in value in only 4 of those years. One of those years was 2008. And the reason that it has only dropped in 4 of the years when the stock market has gone down many, many times in those years is because PERA, because of its size, because of its ability, for example, to buy an entire office building, because of its ability, for example, to own $500 million worth of Apple stock. It is a big player, and it can spread its risks and its investments over a vast range that no individual investor could ever hope to replicate. And that means that PERA is less volatile than the stock market itself or than the bond market itself. It is less volatile, giving greater security. So, to get back to the point, can PERA right now withstand a hit of the size of 2008 without finding itself in need of urgent, drastic action? And the answer is, if that comes in the next 3-4 years, no, it can't. Our flood walls are not high enough right now to withstand a 100-year flood in the next 3, 4, 5 years. And we're not comfortable with that on our side of the aisle because we want to be sure that the PERA is not only probably safe over the next 5 years, but is surely safe over the next 4 or 5 years. Now, as far as so it's prudent for us to build up those flood walls over the next couple of years. Let's build up those flood walls. In fact, that's what Standard & Poor's has urged us to do. They have said in the next 2 years, this they said in November 2017, in the next 2 years, if the fund continues to go down and no significant steps to shore it up are taken, then there is a 1 in 3 chance that we will revise the Colorado credit rating. A 1 in 3 chance if the fund goes down and if no significant steps are taken. So let's make sure that we do this right. We take the significant steps that we need. We do it in a timely fashion. We don't want to be in a situation where we urgently have to take drastic action. So let's build up those flood walls. Now, on the question of not exaggerating the problems with the current structure, it has been said that the current structure is seriously deficient because for a teacher, for example, who only works 3 years, they get nothing out of it. And I just want to say that I ran the numbers over the weekend, and a 3-year teacher who starts at age 25 and quits at age 28 makes a salary of $25,000 a year. If that 3-year teacher takes his or her PERA account out in cash, that teacher, after 3 years of service, will walk away with $6,634.35 in retirement benefits. That is far from nothing for 3 years' work. If that teacher leaves after 3 years' service, her or his monthly benefit account intact and waits till the age of 65 before taking it out, that teacher at the age of 65 can either get $306 a month for the rest of his or her life, or $39,610 in cash for 3 years' service, 20, 30 years earlier. Or if they take the $306 a month after the 3 years done, that comes out to a monthly benefit payout over his or her lifetime of $107,185.40. $107,000 for 3 years of service. That is not nothing. And that has been shown to be better than any other investment you could make in savings plans over a 3-year period at the age of 25 at a salary of $25,000. Much, much better. So don't be deceived. And this takes me to my third and final point. And Mr. Chairman, I thank you for your indulgence. Mr. Empty Chair, I thank you for your indulgence. But don't misunderstand members of the public, people considering going into public service. Don't be seduced by the option of a 401k type plan, which under the bill would be offered to every member of PERA coming in. Don't be seduced by that, because if you take that, you will get less, and the taxpayers will pay more, and PERA will be gradually whittled away. It is a good faith effort by those that don't believe in defined benefit systems, who believe that they should be gradually dismantled, gradually, because they ideologically think that that is a safer, more prudent, better way to run a pension system, is on 401k type plans. They have a legitimate belief. It is not a belief that has ever motivated public service. It is not a belief that has ever motivated PERA, and it is not the ideology that has provided secure retirement till the moment you die for generation after generation of Colorado public servants since 1932. Let's not fundamentally change it now. There is no need to do so, and that's one of the many reasons why I urge you to vote yes on Amendment 013.
Thank you for thanking me, Senator Kagan. You're most welcome. Senator Jones.
I thank you too, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome to.
Members, I spoke about the school teacher. Here's the letter she sent me. Here we go. I applaud the compromise and the work of your reps, of our reps. I am blessed with PERA, but there seems to be a continuation of chipping away at once we were, in caps, guaranteed. I will sacrifice because I have no other option. Fixed income, medical bills increase, and I get older. 34 years in education, 10 years at CU, volunteer work for my community. That's where these retirees are. That's how they're feeling about this bill. And this urgency to do something this year, compared to the draconian nature of the bill itself, reminds me of an old adage we were taught here called, "Don't make a bad bill better." And its corollary, "Don't tinker with another person's bill." And I am guilty of that, I think, for advocating for Amendment 13. But my point is, we don't need this bill this year necessarily. It'd be good. But if it's as bad as the original bill, we should kill it. That's simple. I've never understood, I've seen this kind of play out a few times, and I've never understood how people don't want to honor an obligation the state has made to people who have sacrificed for the state, for young people, for the future of our state and country, undermining their benefits they were promised because they took a job that paid way less than it should, because our society way undervalues teachers and public servants, in my opinion. And they do God's work. They really do. And so I would advocate for voting on 13, yes on Amendment 13, and if that's not the case, no on the bill. Bad bill, vote no.
Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, I rise in support of L013. And I'm here to speak on behalf of my constituents. My constituents have voiced what L013 does. It is a shared responsibility, and that's what my retirees and constituents in Senate District 33 support. And if we look at what L013 does, we know that we need to bring para to 100% funding in the next 30 years. And this does it at a gradual pace. I can't stress enough that is a shared sacrifice. We are all responsible for closing the funding gap. The state underfunded para at $4.5 billion since 2001. The state needs to be a part of that solution. The state made the promise of the benefit that didn't fund what they promised. The employee, the retirees, and the employees shouldn't be the only ones who bear this burden. Both employees and employers will see a guaranteed increase in 1.5% increases in contributions. And retirees who depend on this income will see a 2-year zero of COLA, followed by the 1.75%. This is a huge sacrifice for our retirees who are on a fixed income, but yet they understand they need to do their part. And if the economy and these additional changes don't get para to 100% funding within 30 years, by 2020, we will see the auto-adjust effect and the increased contributions to an additional 5% for employees and employers, and lower the COLA to no lower than 1.5%. This is a very important issue for our constituents in the state of Colorado. I think a shared responsibility is the best path and a reasonable solution, and so I ask you for an aye vote on L013.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to come down, just put a little bit of historical perspective in this bill. Being one of the sponsors of Senate Bill 1 back in 2010, which I'd say a pretty similar situation. We had para in a place where we needed to do something. And as has been stated up here, and I fully agree with my colleague from across the aisle who said that we should not be dealing in fear on this bill, or any bill for that matter. I agree with that. And we said the same thing back when we were doing Senate Bill 1 8 years ago. But I think we did make one or two mistakes with Senate Bill 1. And my belief is that L013 helps correct us from making those same mistakes. And basically what I'm talking about is Senate Bill 1 set us on a new path. It was spoken up here about how these bills set us on a new path, and that the path we're on currently puts us in a position eventually, not next year, maybe not the next year, but eventually to a place where our retirement benefits for our public employees are at risk. And so Senate Bill 1 put us down a path and then pretty much kept us on that path. Whereas what L013, and this is why I fully support it, it puts us down a new path, yet still allows adjustments in the next couple of years, depending on how returns come in, that it allows us, going down this new path, to still have some divergent paths in the next few years. And depending on what happens in those next couple of years, we can go one way or the other. And the other point is, and this was true back in Senate Bill 1, is that we tried to do the least amount that we could while still getting to our goals of making sure that we were securing para benefits for our retirees, but to turn the dials the least, and that is what this amendment does. And thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that we've had quite a few people down here speaking about this amendment. Has been pointed out this is a strike below, which means it is basically a brand new bill. This is important enough that we should absolutely have this discussion. And as former Speaker Romanoff said, everything has been said, just not everyone has said it yet. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Colleagues, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment 13 to Senate Bill 200. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The noes have it. Amendment 13 is lost. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title, or will you please read Amendment 14 by Senator Kagan?
Amendment L014, Senate Bill 200 by Senator Kagan. Amendment Printable, page 8, line 3, strike 7, and substitute 5, page 9, line 27, strike 8, and substitute 6, page 10, strike lines 19 through 26, and substitute calculation. This is subsection 25B6.
Senator Kagan.
Thank you. I move Amendment L014.
Do the amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amendment 14, members, does something important. It embodies a compromise. Right now, if you're a para member, you get a certain percentage of your highest average salary in your last years of service. And the number of years of service that you use to determine what is that highest average salary is currently 3. Senate Bill 200 changes it from 3 to 7. And we think that's unnecessary. We think that averaging your last 7 years of service to determine what your retirement benefit is based on is unnecessarily severe. 3, we are willing to move from. So Amendment 14 sets the highest average salary calculation based on 5 years. It is a moderate compromise, and I urge an aye vote on moving the highest average salary to a basis of 5 years.
Colleagues, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment 14 by Senator Kagan. Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I urge a no vote on the amendment, and I appreciate the fact that my colleague from Cherry Hills Village understands that there is a problem with salary spiking. But I think, if you look at the private sector and really a lot of folks outside of para, which is the majority of Coloradans, their retirement is based on their average salary throughout their whole careers, not to mention based on their savings habit through their whole careers. So I think just having a 7-year sampling out of a whole career makes sense to me. I urge a no vote on the amendment. Thank you.
Colleagues, the motion is the adoption of Amendment 14. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The noes have it. Amendment 14 is lost. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment 24 by Senator Tate?
Amendment L024, Senate Bill 200 by Senator Tate. Amendment Printer Bill page 26, line 6, strike 2022 and substitute 2021, page 26, line 18, strike 2020, substitute 2019, page 48, line 5, strike 2020, substitute 2019, page 48, line 6.
Senator Tate. Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L024 to Senate Bill 200. Members, this is a kind of a cleanup amendment. Originally, when the bill was drafted and working with stakeholders, including PARA, a lot of the provisions for the bill were contemplating action a year later than currently in the draft of the bill. One thing and in terms of advancing a lot of those dates forward a year, one thing we missed was the date that the defined contribution option would start, and so this also moves that up a year with the rest of the provisions. Urge an aye vote on Amendment L024.
Colleagues, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L024 to Senate Bill 200. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendment 24 is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment 16 by Senator Kagan?
Amendment L016, Senate Bill 200 by Senator Kagan. Amendment Printer
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amendment 16.
Senator Merrifield, will you please move the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment 16. Amendment 16 changes the employee contribution. Currently, it's at 3%. This changes it to 1.5 at a 0.75% in 7/1 of 18, and then another 0.75 on 7/1 of 19. So the fact of the matter is, as I said earlier, we realize that we have a problem that needs to be solved. But part of this unfunded liability is, as has been stated many times, I'm not sure how many people have caught that, the fact that the state of Colorado owes PARA $4.5 billion in unpaid contributions to the fund that we have neglected to live up to our responsibilities for the last number of years. So that's what puts us into the situation that we face now. Back in 2010, when I was here, the last year I was in the House, and we passed the bill addressing the concerns, employees and retirees paid for 90% of the cost to reduce the unfunded liability at that time. Again, this bill increases contributions of employees and retirees, nothing from the state. So once again, the solution seems to be on the backs of our employees. The fact of the matter is, an employee contribution of 3% would require new employees to pay more than the cost of their retirement. That does not seem logical, and it certainly does not seem fair. Also, the factor is we don't need 3% to solve the problem. We don't need the 3% to take care of our insolvency. 1.5% increase will resolve the funding deficit in 30 years at 100% without gouging our employees. So I urge you to think sympathetically upon the people who this affects the most and support and pass Amendment 16.
Colleagues, the motion is the adoption of Amendment 16 by Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and colleagues, I urge a no vote on the amendment. I appreciate the concerns expressed by my colleague from the Colorado Springs area. Right now, as you know, we're in budgeting season, and if you think about the simple fact that if we have an employee contribution that is then backfilled by the state in its entirety, then it's really an employer contribution. But pending, so I think this amendment's premature at this time, urge a no vote on the amendment. Thank you.
The motion is the adoption of Amendment 16. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The noes have it. Amendment 16 is lost. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment 21 by Senator Kerr?
Amendment L021, Senate Bill 200 by Senator Kerr, amend printed bill page 47, strike lines 5 through 27.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L021 and ask for its adoption.
To the amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. L021 removes all changes to the current DC plan that are in place in para. And the reason we're doing this is that DC plans in general weaken a defined benefit pension plan that's in place already. And so what we want to do, making sure that we go back to the original title of this bill. And I'd like to remind everyone, the title of Senate Bill 200 concerning modifications to the Public Employees Retirement Association Hybrid Defined Benefit Plan, necessary, very important word here, necessary to eliminate with a high probability the unfunded liability of the plan within the next 30 years. The sections of Senate Bill 200 that expand DC or even bring in additional sections of para under the DC, those sections actually don't quite fit under the title of the bill that they're written in, but they're in there for now. So this brings us back, says, look, DC, we can have that discussion, we can run those bills that would do this, but it does not belong here in this bill, Senate Bill 200, which is trying to get us back down that correct path in order to fully fund the defined benefit system that is in place right now. So with that, I ask for the adoption of L021.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 21? Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, there are two ways of looking at retirement security. One is to say each man and woman for him or herself. If you allow people to provide for their own retirement, put all their money into a plan that is for only their benefit, and if they still have any money left when they decease, then for their children's benefit, let it be matched by the employer, let each person take care of their own. That incentivizes people to really make better provision for themselves, and it is more an individual responsibility which the individual is shouldering. And that is a valid view. Now, there is a view that has motivated para since it began, which is a different view, which is all put into the pool, have employers contribute as well, and when you retire, you are going to get a retirement benefit until you die. Doesn't matter how old you get, you will get that retirement benefit. Under the DC plan, if you live very short, you're fine. But if you live long under a DC plan, you will almost surely be plunged into poverty and destitution. And then, once you have been plunged into poverty and destitution, if you live in above average length of time that your savings don't cover, if you are living in that destitution and poverty, you are no longer contributing to the economy in your old age where you live. You are draining the economy in which you live in your old age. So this is a very different view of how to fund our retirements for our public servants. One view, direct defined benefit, says those who live the longest will be covered, as well as those who die early. The other view is those who die early will get a bit of a windfall because they'll have provided enough to take them to the average age, perhaps, but they died before that, so their kids get it. And if you live long under a defined contribution plan and are blessed to live into your ripe old age, live more than the average length of time under a defined contribution plan, you are almost surely going to run out of money. And that, members, is a principled distinction between defined contribution and defined benefit. And there is no reason to move away from defined benefit, which has served us so well for so long in this state. Colorado led the way in providing retirement security, just as it led the way in providing women the vote and in so many other areas. PERA was established before Social Security, and it has improved. It has shown itself to be much better than Social Security. Let's not tinker with the fundamental benefits that PERA has provided for so long. Let's not whittle away at them and gradually lure people away from a scheme which has served all our retirees, youngish and old, well. And that's why you should vote yes on Amendment 121.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I call for a no vote on Senate Bill on Amendment 21. And I believe the previous speaker stated it quite clearly and quite well that a defined contribution system does rely on more of the personal responsibility of the individual rather than just the collectivist system of defined benefit. But Senate Bill 200 doesn't take away defined benefit programs at all. It simply gives the employee the choice. It gives them the choice to choose between one or the other. And I'll make one other point here, and that is, does it fit under the title of the bill or not? Well, actually it does. Because if you bring fewer and fewer people on in the defined benefit system, you are bringing fewer and fewer future liabilities into the system. Defined contribution systems does have a short-term cash flow differential that has to be taken into consideration. But the real problems we're looking at is down the road, the $30 billion to $80 billion shortfall that's currently within the structure of the PERA system. That's what we're addressing with this bill. That's what the bill title talks about. And as you move more people from defined benefit to defined contribution, that long-term liability is that much less. That does address the problem. That is under the bill title. And all Senate Bill 200 does is give all of the employees the choice. It's a good idea, but the amendment is not.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I have to respectfully disagree with my colleague on the last statement. This switching to some opportunities for DC options does not address the unfunded liability. The fact of the matter, switching to the DC is going to cost the taxpayers an additional 6 to 9% in contribution levied upon employers, which is going to amount to, in the end, billions of dollars. It's not a reasonable or logical way to address the problem. As I spoke earlier about another amendment, we need to just simplify, address the problem, not get involved in debates over what is reasonable and logical, to some degree, to somebody's opinion, the best way to create a retirement system. This amendment, adding the DC contribution, does not help address the problem. If we're just going to talk about addressing the need, let's get away from that particularly debatable situation.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I respectfully ask for a no vote on the amendment. You know, what is the problem? I mean, the problem is the failure of risk management, frankly. And I like defined benefit systems. I like the idea of a pension. But you can't really extol the virtues of a pension system absent saying, oh, whoopsies, we have a $30 to $60 billion unfunded liability associated with it. Of course it's great when you can run up charges like that on a credit card. So unfortunately, we have to make some tough choices down here. And the defined contribution option is a choice like the choices we have to make, and it's a choice for employees. But I would just urge everyone here to remember that if you're making a decision on the efficacy of a pension system, it has to be in conjunction with its financial management. And I support a pension system. I support having a defined benefit plan, but I support having one that's solvent and that's being managed in that direction. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The motion is the adoption of Amendment 21 by Senator Kerr. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The noes have it. Amendment 21 is lost. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment 17 by Senator Kerr?
Amendment L017, Senate Bill 200 by Senator Kerr. Amendment printable page 22, legs.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L017.
Thank you. To the amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. L017, while similar to the last amendment, this removes the DC supplement that's in place in Senate Bill 200. And I think this really highlights the problem with including a DC program and a DC expansion, because what the DC supplement is basically doing is robbing Peter to pay Paul, and that is if Peter is in a DC program and Paul is in the defined benefit program. And this is a bad deal for taxpayers. I truly believe that the DC program in general is a bad deal for taxpayers. And I want people to remember when we look at a pension system, it is really designed for everyone to put a little skin in the game, as it were, and to make sure that there is a pension, there are resources available for when each and every person retires. For those of you who have not decided your position on a defined contribution versus a defined benefit system, I want you to think about 2008 and what happened to the stock market and what happened to your 401k, what happened to everyone you know and their 401k. That's the defined contribution risk out there. And L017 would simply say we're not going to go down that road in this bill. If people would like to make the argument that defined contribution system and this supplement system actually belong in para, that we will do that with a separate bill at a different time. With that, I ask for the adoption of L017.
Senator Kagan.
Members and taxpayers, know this. If we create this DC supplement to pump taxpayer subsidies into the defined benefit trusts, into the para trusts, it will cost at least 6% more of employers for every person that chooses DC, and possibly up to 9% more from employers. That means you, taxpayers, increase your employer contributions to make up for the lack of employee and employer contributions into DC by 6 to 9%. And when I hear my colleagues on the other side of the aisle say, no, we can't allow employers to be increasing their contributions by even 1.5%, as we propose, but are happy to increase employer contributions by 6 to 9% to cover the cost of DC option takers, then that to me is very ill-advised and very unfair on the employers and ultimately the taxpayers of Colorado. So please reject it, if only on that ground alone. I mean, accept the amendment and reject the DC option expansion on that ground alone.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, I respectfully ask for a no vote on the amendment. And if, in fact, a rationale for voting no on this amendment is, as my colleague mentioned, a issue of robbing Peter to pay Paul, if that's something you don't like, that's a reason to vote against having a pension system in the first place. So I would urge a no vote on the amendment. Thank you.
The motion is the adoption of Amendment 17 by Senator Kerr. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The noes have it. Amendment 17 is lost. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment 26 by Senator Kerr?
Amendment L026, Senate Bill 200 by Senator Kerr. Amendment Printable Bill, page 51, strike lines 14 through 27, strike page 52.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L026.
Do the amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. L026 removes sections 26 and 27 from the bill. This is on the Pension Reform Commission. I have a constituent who is on the FPPA board right now. They have discussed this combining them with para, basically, and they are against it. They asked me to please remove sections 26 and 27. I ask for an aye vote.
Colleagues, the motion is the adoption of Amendment 26 by Senator Kerr. Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I respectfully ask for a no vote on the amendment. We need better governance from the General Assembly. Thank you.
The motion is the adoption of Amendment 26 by Senator Kerr. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The noes have it. Amendment 26 is lost. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment 19 by Senator Kagan, please?
Amendment L019, Senate Bill 200 by Senator Kagan. Amendment Printable Bill, page 29, strike line 7, strike 1.9, 2.3, and 6, and substitute 1.9 and 2.3, page 32, strike line 7.
Senator John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, I'm offering this amendment after a lot of discussion with both of the colleagues on each side of the aisle. We've all had discussion and had people coming to us that in current law, there's a certain age at which they are vested. To me, that's a contract issue, so this simply removes the age requirement in increases for current vested members and leaves everything else intact as it is. But this is really a contract issue. They came in under the contract, and I believe that that's what should be honored. So I am asking for an aye vote on L019.
Senator John, will you please move L019?
I'm sorry. I move L019 to Senate Bill 200.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, I'm supportive of this amendment right now. There is a potential, this is a potential source of litigation. I say potential because it does get in a gray area of the notion of a pension as a contract. But when this bill was drafted, it was trying to get to a kind of a core part of unfairness. And the unfairness is that PARA has recommended for new members the retirement age be 65. However, currently, for current members, retirement age can be many, many years less than that. So you have a situation where someone could be joining the public sector at age 32, sit down in a cubicle, and in the office next door to them, same age, the person's retiring 7 years earlier. It's just it's a kind of it's a fairness issue I thought was prudent to have in the bill, a parity issue between people working together day to day, and but I understand my colleague from Wheat Ridge, her concerns about it, and I'm supportive of the amendment. Thank you.
Colleagues, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L019. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L019 is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment L025 by Senator Kagan?
Amendment L025, Senate Bill 200 by Senator Kagan. Amendment
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this amendment is very similar.
Senator Zenzinger, will you please move the amendment?
Yes, I move Amendment 25. And I encourage an aye vote because this is a very similar issue in that it removes the increasing of the retirement age for all employees. And as we just heard, there are some constitutional implications with this. And we saw on the original Senate Bill 1 how litigation has the potential to slow down the bill from taking effect. And so I think it's really important that this particular aspect not be involved in the overall bill. And in particular, for what? Why would we want to slow down the passage of something that's going to fix the unfunded liability for what potentially is extremely low payout? According to the actuarial tables, we possibly get 1 year off of the unfunded liability by making this dramatic change. And the current formula that we have of age plus experience works. It works for a variety of different divisions, and so but it doesn't work, increasing it doesn't work for some of the divisions, and I just want to share with you some of what was testified in committee. We had several employees that came and talked about how if we were to leave this aspect in the bill, it would create security and safety concerns as well as recruitment concerns. So right now, we're already having a tough time getting people to become public employees and for example, addressing the teacher shortage without having to tell them that they have to work longer. And at the Senate Finance hearing, over half a dozen employees from the Colorado Department of Corrections noted that the average lifespan for someone in that line of work is 58 years. 58, that's the average lifespan for a correctional officer in our state. So increasing the retirement age to 65, it's not only unfair, but we're going to keep aging guards on the job even longer beyond when they're unable to properly restrain prisoners. Not to mention snowplow drivers, any number of other aspects of our state operations in which this would not be a good idea and could actually impose security and safety risks. Not to mention that when raising the retirement age for educators, that doesn't account for the long work hours outside of a normal school day, nor does it account for what type of environment that creates for students. So I encourage an aye vote on this. I think it's really important that we allow the changes for the unfunded liability to be our main focus here, and leaving this aspect in the bill has the potential to slow it down, could get tied up in the courts, and I think is just unnecessary and doesn't actually move the needle, which is really our goal here today. So I encourage an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 25? Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I urge a no vote on the amendment. The simplest way I can describe as to why PARA has asked for a retirement age increase is that if you're going to start filling the hole, you have to stop digging the hole. And a big part of why we're here is the actuarial assumptions related to longevity versus the retirement age. And that's about, if I recall, about 25% of the liability we have right now. So urge a no vote on the amendment. Thank you.
Motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment 25. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The noes have it. Amendment 25 is lost. Colleagues, is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 200? Seeing none, Senator Kagan.
So I urge a no on Senate Bill 200. It has not been amended to make it a sensible way forward. All this will do, if we pass it in its current form, is it will further ensure that some people, those who are seduced into a DC option, actually, if they live long, will go into poverty and become people who need the support of the state rather than people who are contributing to the state's economy. All that will happen if we pass Senate Bill 200 in its unamended form, or amended by only the one amendment that's been accepted, if we pass Senate Bill 200 in that form, it means that employees unnecessarily will be saddled with a 3% increase in their contributions. Retirees unnecessarily will first have their COLAs suspended for 2 years And then when they resume, they will resume at an unnecessarily low rate of 1.25%. It means that employers will not contribute any contribution increase in their contribution rates at all, but that taxpayers and employers, through employers, will have to do the emergency scramble of a 6 to 9% increase in their subsidy to the defined benefit plan for those to make up for those who are leaving it as a result of the DC option. It is a bad and unnecessary hit all round, except to employer contribution rates, and it is absolutely unfair and unnecessary to perpetuate this kind of pain in this kind of way at this time on para members and retirees, present and future. I urge a no vote on Senate Bill 200.
Colleagues, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 200. Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've had a pretty good discussion on this, on Senate Bill 200. However, there was an opportunity to make it really legitimately address the concerns that have been brought forward that we agree with, that there is an unfunded liability we need to address. But this bill does a number of things that are unnecessary to addressing that concern. Number one, it includes a DC expansion that doesn't reduce the unfunded liability, it actually adds to it, and it provides less retirement security. Number two, it adds an employee contribution of 3% that, as I spoke about earlier, require new employees to pay more than the cost of their retirement. We can accomplish full funding in 30 years without this such high increase. We know that employees will face increased contributions as part of the shared sacrifice, but 3% is too drastic and unnecessary. Number three, the reductions in the cost of living adjustment, the COLA, reduces it from 2 to 1.25, and we could do that with a much more modest reduction in cost of living that would accomplish the full funding in 30 years. This bill's rate of reduction requires retirees to lose 8.7% of their benefits over the next 10 years at an average loss of $22,688 and with a loss of 11.9% purchasing power. I don't know about you, but for me, looking at a loss of $22,688 over the next 10 years, hopefully I'll live the next 10 years, but I would rather live with that extra $22,000. So there's a number of other problems with this legislation. Specifically, I'll get back to my first point. It is not needed to address the basic problem. The amendment that we offered would address the basic problem, and that would be the solution that I would wish we could move forward with. So that being said, I would urge a no vote on this bill, Senate Bill 200.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I've really listened intently to this bill because it is so very important. I think one of the things that I'm really proud of for the state of Colorado is PARA and the solidity of PARA over the number of years. Through some of the challenges that we've seen with the recession and the impact that has had, I think all of those have been crucial for maintaining a solid work environment for people. We have a tremendous teacher shortage. And so when I look at that and I say, how do we bring people to the teaching profession? How do we encourage them to be a part of? And the instability of the message that we're sending is, well, you can come and work on meager salaries. You can work long hours. You can give your all, but we're going to not guarantee what your retirement looks like. Your salary is not really comparable to the workforce outside of public employees. And so looking at that and saying, you know, is that going to be something that invites people to come and be a part of the teaching profession in Colorado? Now, I understand para relates to a wider span than just teachers, but I want to focus on that because we are really hitting a crisis in Colorado and nationwide, but specifically in Colorado, to put a teacher in front of the students in every classroom. And so, again, looking at that and looking at the fact that we're asking them to make a contribution, make a sacrifice, again, with a lower salary, higher benefits of costs for health care, and so not really keeping a cost of living, not really being able to move ahead. We're not asking the employers to contribute. My question is why? Why would we not have a balance? Why would we not ask everyone to be a part of that? We're asking our retirees to not receive a COLA for 2 years. So we've got our retirees, we've got our current employees, but employers, we're saying, you get off. You don't need to contribute. This is an incomplete bill. This is not a good solution that has been thought out to look at across the board, that everybody comes to the table and participates. Just want to serve one more reminder. Teachers and public employees do not get Social Security. This is their retirement. So when we're putting people that are on a fixed income and we're saying, this is where you're going to be, you're going to take a hit again, because for many of those folks, and so yes, we've all gotten letters, and it's not about fear, it's about the reality. Because when many of them retired, they retired on a 3.5%, and we have already taken it down to a 2.5%. We continue to chip away at people that are on a fixed income that gave maybe 30, 40 years of their life in the field of public service. So I'm hopeful that there will continue to be work done on this bill, that it is comprehensive, that it does look more like a compromise of really recognizing the necessity of contributions from all. And as the bill is going out of the Senate at this point, I will be a no on Senate Bill 200. I, too, have been inundated with lots of emails. I listen to my constituents, but I don't just listen to them. I run into them in the grocery store. I see them at church. I see them in the store. And they are concerned. They are concerned for the welfare of their future. Again, I urge a no vote on Senate Bill 200, remembering the people that sent us here to represent them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I too will be a no vote on Senate Bill 200. It's not a good Colorado solution to para. It's not even a good remedy to address para. It's totally unfair. Folks, our retirees who are in para are on a fixed income, and we're putting them at risk. We all know the circumstances right here in Colorado. The cost of living is going up. It's hard to find affordable housing. Wages are stagnant, and yet we want to put this burden on them by increasing their percentage in their share. We're hurting the people that do some really incredible work for the state of Colorado. We're talking about teachers and our state workers, which means we're talking about our children. And these employees and retirees need assurance as it relates to retirement. This Senate Bill 200 is not a good solution. and we should vote no on it. It shortchanged the future of our educators moving forward and our kids. And what we need to be doing is securing a predictable retirement plan. Vote no on Senate Bill 200.
Senator Tate. No, sorry, Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I will be an enthusiastic yes on Senate Bill 200. It has come with much study and discussion from a lot of stakeholders, but the main issue I'm enthusiastic about, and this is to rebut the good senator from Aurora, is the DC option is very powerful for the millennial in attracting them to education. Millennials are concerned about health care. They're not of their grandparents' generation where they're in early years looking to lock in on that 30-year track for the gold watch at the end. DC option, if they choose, underline that, if they choose, will give them that flexibility and control over their own destiny. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 200? Senator Kagan.
Just to reiterate in response to the good senator who just spoke about people who do short-term employment, if you go in at the age of 25 and you only spend 3 years in Para as a teacher earning $25,000 a year, when you come out and retire, you can take $6,500 to the nearest 100 in cash, or you can keep it in until you reach retirement age, at which point you can get more than $300 a month in retirement until the day you die, which, if you have an average lifespan, comes out at more than $100,000 of benefits. Now, that's a very attractive package, and it's more attractive than you can get in any other retirement scheme, according to people who have studied it at length. Just wanted to point that out.
Colleagues, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 200. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 200 is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 185? Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to lay over the balance of the second reading calendar until Tuesday, March 27th.
Colleagues, the motion is to lay over the balance of General Order's second reading calendar until Tuesday, March 27th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We will lay over the balance of the calendar until Tuesday, March 27th. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
Colleagues, the motion is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes barely have it. We will rise and report. Oh, yeah, man.
Senate will come back to order. Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee has met and had a bill under consideration. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave reports had in consideration the following test bills in the second reading thereof. Makes the following recommendations are one. Senate Bill 200 is amended past second reader order and gross placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 185, Senate Bill 52, Senate Bill 166, Senate Bill 204, House Bill 1148, House Bill 1237, House Bill 1018, Senate Bill 123 is amended laid over until 32718, retaining the place on the calendar. Senate Bill 43 laid over until 32918, retaining its place on the calendar.
Senator Hill.
Thanks, Mr. President. I move the report.
Motion for the body is the adoption of the report to the committee of the whole. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read Amendment 1 of the Committee of the Whole on Senate Bill 200 by Senator Merrifield?
Committee of the whole
Senator
amendment.
Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. President. You may remember that I spoke eloquently.
Would you please move the amendments?
And I move Cal number 1 to Senate Bill 200.
Thank you, Senator.
Back to my eloquence. I spoke about the fact that in this bill, which does not address only the specific need that we should be addressing, the employees are being asked to bear the majority of the burden on their backs with a 3% increase. My Cal would change that to a 1.5 increase. So I went quickly online, and from Wallet Hub, 2017's best and worst state for teachers, the average salary in Colorado for teachers has declined 7.7% for the lowest annual salary of 48th in the nation. And now we are asking our teachers and employees to dig deeper and to solve the problem entirely on their backs. What happened to the terminology of shared sacrifice that was bandied about so frequently as we began to discuss solutions to our unfunded liability? As I told you earlier, this increase would actually cost new employees more out of their pocket than they are going to receive in retirement benefits. Logically, the conclusion would be that's not fair. Therefore, if you believe in fairness, and you understood what I just said about Colorado being 48th in the nation for teacher salary, you would support me in passing Cal number 1 to Senate Bill 200.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I urge a no vote on this Cal. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on Committee of the Whole Amendment 1? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Committee of the Whole Amendment 1 to Senate Bill 200. Are there any no votes? Senator Tate, Senator Priola, Senator Lambert, Senator Lundberg, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Coram, Senator Neville, Senator Marble, Senator Gardner, Senator Cook, Senator Hill, Senator Scott, Senator Crowder, Senator Smallwood, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Majority Leader Holbert. Please add the President. With 17 ayes, 18 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Committee of the Whole Amendment 1 is lost. Mr. Carpenter, please read Committee of the Whole Amendment 2 to Senate Bill 200 by Senator Kerr.
Committee of the whole amendment 2 to
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Committee of the Whole Amendment 2.
To the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. We discussed a couple of different options of keeping the defined contribution plan from expanding or being put in as or supplementing the defined benefit plan that already is in existence. Committee of the Whole Amendment 2 is on the removing the DC supplement amendment that we talked about earlier. Again, I would underscore that this is a bad deal for taxpayers, as taxpayers will be funding a expanded defined contribution system, which then this part of the bill, which I believe arguably doesn't even fit under the original bill title of the bill, but that this would, this really is the, as I was talking about, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and Peter being in the defined contribution system, having chosen that earlier in their career, and throughout their career, part of their money that they're putting in and the employers put in into the defined contribution system under this new system will then be going in to support the defined benefit system. Again, as we talk about expansion of defined contribution, I think it's important that we think back to those times when the stock market has crashed, quite literally. Think back to 2008 and think about your portfolio. Think about everyone that you know who had a 401k and what it went through in 2008. Now, the public pensions like PARA certainly didn't do great in that time period either, but I know many people who basically lost their life savings and their 401ks at that time. And so with that, I would ask for the adoption of L017.
Or Committee of the Whole.
Or Committee of the Whole Amendment 2. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I just was thinking about some of the comments that my predecessor from Jeffco was talking about. And I think when we look at millennials, and the comment that was made earlier that, you know, millennials want to be able to have a defined benefit. By and large, millennials that are starting into a profession may or may not even be thinking down the road for retirement. And so I think by making sure that they are getting a defined benefit and that they are involved and engaged in a retirement program, that perhaps they would not be on a minimum wage job or something in another category, that really is a benefit for them. That, again, it teaches them the value of saving, the value of planning for the future. And I think in some cases, our millennials are not wanting to sit there and try to figure out where they're going to invest and where they're going to spend their monies for retirement. So I would just give that other perspective in working with young people and recognizing that they are in teaching or in public service primarily to give and to serve and to work, but in terms of being able to spend all of their time trying to figure out where they're going to invest their money and which portfolio, I think that the defined benefit is a great way for so many people to get started in retirement. So again, I would just urge an aye vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I urge a no vote on the amendment. Although I don't disagree at all with what the good senator just said, that there are plenty of millennials that would like a defined benefit plan as an option. The bill clearly allows the defined benefit plan to be an option. What's missing is a couple things. One is there are plenty of millennials that would like to be in control of their own investments. And in some cases, that might mean being more conservative with how they invest their money compared to the efficient frontier that's built by the PARA board. And in other cases, it might be more aggressive. There are people that want the choice to be more aggressive or less aggressive than the board, and to take that opportunity away from them, I don't really think is fair. Secondly, we heard the other senator mention about the crash in 2008. And there was a crash in 2000, and there was a crash in 1930-something. There are always crashes in the stock market when one builds an effective and efficient portfolio, just like the PARA board does with its consultations. The market bears ups and downs. So yes, 2008, 2009, those weren't great years. How about last year? How about the year before last? Look at a 2-year performance of the equity market today. And when one takes a long-term approach on this, and when they're being properly guided, there's no reason to think that a portfolio doesn't do exceedingly well over time. And as one gets closer to retirement, good portfolio theory says that you take money out of global equities and put them into safer investments. To tell Colorado that our millennials aren't smart enough to do this, I don't think is really fair, and I urge a no vote.
Is there any further discussion on Committee of the Whole Amendment 2? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Committee of the Whole Amendment 2 to Senate Bill 200. Are there any no votes? Senator Tate, Senator Priola, Senator Smallwood, Senator Lambert, Senator Lundberg, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Gardner, Senator Coram, Senator Neville, Senator Marble, Senator Cook, Senator Hill, Senator Crowder, Senator Scott, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Majority Leader Holbert. Please add the President. 17 ayes, 18 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused. Committee of the Whole Amendment 2 is lost. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read Committee of the Whole Amendment 3 to Senate Bill 200 by Senator Kagan?
Committee of the Whole Amendment 3 to Senate Bill 200.
Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Committee of the Whole Amendment 3.
To the amendment.
Members, Committee of the Whole Amendment 3 would prevent punitive, punishing increases in contributions from employees and punishing cuts in retirement cost of living adjustments for retirees. 3%, and it would make sure that to the extent that we are tightening our belts and making sacrifices, that employers are part of that process. Let's not punish employees and retirees for a situation that is not of their making. That is wrong. And let's not, under the guise of eliminating unfunded liability, say employers don't not need to contribute to that solution. That is wrong. And finally, let us not take this opportunity, as Senate Bill 200 does, to say while we're at it, let's not only inflict gratuitous pain on current members of PERA, but let us also lure away new people from the whole defined benefit structure with falsely attractive offers, which, if they take, will gradually whittle away the entire defined benefit structure of PERA that has served us all so well for so long. So for all those reasons, I urge you to vote yes on Committee of the Whole Amendment 3.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I urge a no vote on the amendment. And I heard my colleague from Cherry Hills Village talk about punishment. Well, who are the punishers? The PERA board and the governor wants a 3% increase in employee contributions. The PERA board wants a COLA cap of 1.5%. The governor wants a COLA cap that's in the bill right now of 1.25%. That's 25 basis points. You know, let's call it the punishers if this is so punishing and draconian. Let's talk about the defined contribution plan whittling away the pension plan. You know, we've had a defined contribution in the state for 15 years for state employees. After 15 years, around 10% of employees have selected it because that choice has made sense for them. Experience in the state does not support the conclusions that my colleague has offered to you, and I will ask for a no vote on the amendment. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Committee of the Whole Amendment 3 to Senate Bill 200. Are there any no votes? Senator Tate, Senator Scott, Senator Priola, Senator Smallwood, Senator Lundberg, Senator Lambert, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Gardner, Senator Coram, Senator Neville, Senator Marble, Senator Cook, Senator Hill, Senator Crowder, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Majority Leader Holbert. Please add the President. 17 ayes, 18 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused. Committee of the Whole Amendment 3 is lost. The motion before the body is the adoption of the report to the Committee of the Whole. Are there any no votes? Senator Kerr, Senator Court, Senator Merrifield, Senator Guzman, Senator Donovan, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Aguilar, Senator Williams, Senator Todd, Senator Fields, Senator Jones, Leader Garcia, Senator Fenberg. With 22 ayes, 13 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 200 is amended, passed on second reading, ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 185, Senate Bill 52, Senate Bill 166, Senate Bill 204, House Bill 1148, House Bill 1237, House Bill 1018, Senate Bill 123 is amended, laid over until 3/27/18, retaining their place on the calendar. Senate Bill 43 laid over until 3/29/18, retaining its place on the calendar. Consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read all the appointments on the consent calendar?
Members of the Board of Assessment Appeals for terms expiring July 1st, 2018, Sandra Winterhoff Mercier of Westminster, Colorado, reappointed. Mary Kay Kelly of Silverthorne, Colorado, reappointed. Ann Louisa Miracle of Denver, Colorado, reappointed. Greg Allen Neer of Lakewood, Colorado, reappointed for term expiring July 1st, 2021. Deborah Ann Baumbach of Littleton, Colorado, reappointed. Member of the State Historical Society Board of Directors for terms expiring July 1st, 2020. Ray Pedersen of Denver, Colorado, reappointed. Members of the Board of Commissioners of Veterans Community Living Centers for a term expiring July 1st, 2019. Carolyn Mickey of Brush, Colorado, to serve as a member with expertise in nursing home operations, who is a nursing home administrator at the time of appointment, who is experienced in the financial operations of a nursing home and is a Republican, occasioned by the resignation of Ruth Eileen Minima, RN of Centennial, Colorado, appointed effective July 1st, 2017 for terms expiring July 1st, 2021. Kathleen N. Dunham, PhD of Littleton, Colorado, who has expertise in nursing home operations and who has a practical clinical experience in nursing homes and is a Democrat, reappointed. Sarah Ann Kruschke, ED of Wheat Ridge, Colorado, who has an expertise in nursing home operations, who has experience in multi-facility management of nursing homes and is a Democrat, reappointed.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move all the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar, including members of the Board of Assessment Appeals, a member of the State Historical Society Board of Directors, and members of the Board of Commissioners of Veterans Community Living Centers.
Is there any discussion? The motion is for the adoption of all the governor's appointments listed on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the appointments are confirmed. The following persons have been appointed to the Board of Assessment Appeals: Sandra Winterhoff Mercier, Mary Kay Kelly, Ann Louisa Miracle, Greg Allen Neer, Deborah Ann Baumbach. To the State Historical Society Board of Directors, Rick Pedersen. To the Board of Commissioners of Veterans Community Living Centers, Carolyn Mickey, Kathleen Dunham, Cheryl Ann Kruschke. Signing of bills.
The President signs Senate Bill 82 and 135.
Message from the House.
The House has passed in third reading and transmitted with advisory statutes. House Bill 1243, 1275, and 1282. The House has passed in third reading and transmitted with advisory statutes. House Bill 1132, 1149, 1234, 1250, 1065, 1109, 1211, 1261. Amended as printed in the House Journal, March 23, 2018. The House has passed in third reading and returns herewith Senate Bill 107.
Message from the Reviser.
We herewith transmit without comment House Bill 1243, 1275, and 1282 without comment as amended House Bill 1065, 1109, 1132, 1149, 1211, 1234, 1250, and 1261.
Announcements. Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. Veterans Caucus is today from noon to 1 at room 603 at 1525 Sherman. Thank you.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I ask for a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you. Members, I'd like to read to you a statement that was written by a survivor of sexual harassment here at the Capitol. She's asked to remain anonymous, and the letter's quite long, so I have taken the liberty of editing some of it down. It says, "To my senators, yes, an odd title for a letter that contains experiences far beyond experiences that need to be dictated in politics, but it is you that I am speaking to today and not him. You don't know me. I'll introduce myself to you using things that not even he knew about me. I am a student that has always dreamed of sitting where you sit today. I am a skier, a transplant Coloradan who can ski just as well as a native, and the mountains have always been my home. I feel mostly in touch with them as the ground on which they stand contains hundreds of my hours of blood, sweat, and tears, and that's just in the park. I'm a writer. I've spent hours of my life compiling hours on manuscripts that won't ever see the light of day, but they're there. And the stories they contain are harrowing and long, but they are beautiful all the same. I bet you didn't know that. I bet you wouldn't have ever known that until this moment, because how many times did we pass each other? How many times did you see an older man glancing down at my skirt as he passed? And how many times did you witness a colleague reaching down to put his hands on an aide or an intern? You never saw, but I saw you. There are reasons as to why I didn't speak up. My name tag was one of them. He told me that he liked the way I dressed. In public, he put his hands on me, resting them on my shoulders, in the middle of the Capitol. And I saw you, but you never saw me. Don't get me wrong, I get it. I watched papers fly, tensions exceed breaking, and all the while I watched as you ran from place to place, trying your best to create a better Colorado for people just like me. Yet while bustling from place to place, I was seemingly lost in that transaction. While you ran from place to place, eyes buried down in a brief or a wall in front of you, ear taped to the cell phone you strung up on your ear, I waited. I waited for the day that someone would notice, but no one did. I walked into millions of morning sessions, watched as you all cheered and chanted for education, yet you failed to educate each other on what consent and bodily autonomy is. Did you know that every day when you left your seats, I remained in mine? Sometimes for 20 minutes, sometimes for an hour. I would wait until I was sure that he was gone, and then I would leave. I would walk back from the Capitol, head down in notes, hoping that maybe if I kept walking and kept moving, it could be you. There were times when it would work, too. I found myself numb to the monotonous work that became my office routine. While I could numb myself, I couldn't make myself blind, and what you didn't see, I did. I watched other senators and representatives make inappropriate comments and give unwanted glances, and I watched. I watched other women in my same position shy away from telling anyone. There's this unspoken rule about being an intern. You are seen and not heard. It's part of it. It's the experience. It's the goal. And we all know how many times our parents told us it looked good on resumes. There's also an unspoken rule about harassment. The harasser can be seen and the victim is not to be heard. And when you are young, your parents tell you that it's important to look up to the president. And when I was 10, I wanted to be the president. When you get older, your parents tell you never to get into a car with a stranger and never walk home at night. But he wasn't a stranger, and I wasn't walking home. He was the person I was always taught to look up to. You are the people I was always told to look up to. Instead, you became a catalyst, establishing dynamics which instill this idea of ownership into the workplace, and I was just another intern. There were at least 100 of me, and I was replaceable. If an intern cries in a bathroom, are they heard? And as if an intern is touched, are their screams loud enough to elicit a response? No. I won't forget my last day. You made sure of that. I left the annex, tears rolling down my face, knowing full well that it was your presence that had done this to me, and I put that skirt away. The back of my closet claimed it, and you won. There would never be a time where you'd get to put your hands on me, and the next day I walked into the registrar's office and dropped my political science major, trading it for something less painful. Then there was a chance to finally be believed, and I finally filed a report, and it was like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders, but now it feels like my world has yet again lost its spin. I thought, when I was proved to be right, that you'd believe me. I thought you'd see me. You still don't, and I am here writing a letter to you to beg for your belief, and I was asked to write about my experiences, but this letter is just not about me, it's about every woman. And it's funny, it seems as if every time I talk to a woman, it's not about if she's been assaulted, but when. This story and these stories are not unique to me. These stories run deeper than just here at the Capitol, and now you've done everything in your power to undermine me again. You feel that you're being slighted, yet I am the one who has lost it all. Please don't discredit my story. Don't tell me that it wasn't hard to relive this for each investigation, and don't tell me that I'm not entitled to an apology. I was once asked what I wanted from this, and I responded change, but now I just want to know that what I have left to lose. What do you have left to take from me? I can walk away. I never will be able to. You were the people I was told to look up to, and I hope you will be those people. For this, we, the members of the Senate Democratic Caucus, ask that the Senate resolution that we prepared and submitted for introduction on February 13th, 2018, entitled Concerning the Expulsion of the Senator from Northwestern Colorado for Sexual Harassment of a Legislative Employee, be promptly introduced and brought to the floor of the Senate for debate.
Any further announcements? Senator Koufalos.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, just to mention that the Colorado Children's Caucus is underway till about 1:15 in SCR 357, and there are 2 presentations that are being offered. If you wish to join us, thank you.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of Senate Judiciary, our calendar shows us meeting at 1:30. We only have one bill this afternoon, so just in the interest of accommodating everyone over the lunch hour, I am moving our start time to 1:45 p.m. 1:45 for Senate Judiciary.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today in Senate business, we will not be hearing Senate Bill 201. That will be laid over 1 week. Thank you.
Announcements. Senator Lambert.
Joint Budget Committee will not be meeting upon adjournment or at 1:30.
Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adjourn until 1:30 today. There are some bills that need to be read across the desk at that time. You do not need to be in attendance.
Would you like to recess until 1:30 p.m. today?
I thought I said recess. Recess, Mr. President. Withdraw, recess. Mr. President.
Yes, Senator Scott. Good to hear from you.
Yes, it's good to see you again today. I move that we recess until 1:30 today. We have some bills that need to be read across the desk. You do not need to be in attendance unless you so desire.
The motion is to stand in recess until 1:30 p.m. today. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we will stand in recess.
Thank you.